what's going on right now between Iran and the United States. As you know, the blockade is back, the strait is closed, and the Trump administration is trying to coerce the Iranian government and trying to put pressure and forcing them in some sort of deal. Nobody knows what does that mean, because with the MOU they violated everything. There is nothing left of MOU. It's all, we can say, literally obliterated the whole the so-called MOU. The other thing that has happened is, which is of particular importance, is the attack between this tit-tat between Yemen and Saudi Arabia, because so the only way that Saudi Arabia can export its oil is through the Red Sea. And if something goes wrong, there are two alternatives for Yemen. One of them is closing. Let me bring the map up here, because right now the Strait of Hormuz, you see up there, is closed. And the other point is Bab el Mandab is in the Red Sea. The Yemenis or Ansarullah, they can close the Bab el Mandab, or they can hit some targets in Saudi Arabia with the oil facilities or the pipeline. This is the whole story of the oil market that Donald Trump is trying to manage. But the war is not somehow contracting, is somehow expanding, and is getting worse. And let us know, what is your understanding of the current situation in Washington, maybe the foreign policy of the United States, or the situation in the region, which is of particular importance?
Well, first of all, my understanding is that the Iranian government has now formally said that the memorandum of understanding is, as far as they're concerned, no longer in effect. So the United States has violated it. Now Iran rejects it. So it's gone. It was a temporary effort to try to reach some sort of accommodation. I think what happened, in my own judgment, is that the president signed it because he has to get this over with in a reasonable amount of time. And then it was explained to him that he had given away more than he could politically manage with his own base here in the United States, which is probably true. And so he simply, as he does so often, proceeded to act in such a way as if he had not signed this document. And the Iranians waited a few days, as has become a pattern, and then decided, oh, I see, so that's not relevant anymore either. And meanwhile, the war has expanded. There is a way in which that is always probable in a war. What you need to understand is the war, when it breaks out, changes things. And everybody in the area, everyone affected, every other country, every company, many population groups, as they are affected by the war, they change their behavior, they accommodate. For example, people leave a part of the world and move somewhere else. They become refugees to escape the war. That means new kinds of pressures exist on transportation facilities, on the countries to which they move, and on and on. Meanwhile, countries reassess their situation. The crisis faced by neighboring countries, by countries affected by the closing of the Strait of Hormuz, they are all adjusting. And as they adjust, they can often, not at all necessary, but frequent, bump into one another and cause frictions that lead countries to decide now is a time when we can go to war. I don't know the details, and maybe we never will be, but it is quite possible to spin out this scenario that Saudi Arabia, pressured by the whole developments there, caught between the United States, with which it wishes to maintain a long-standing relationship, and a new face towards China, and a recognition it's going to have to get along with Iran now in a new way that it didn't have available before, made some decisions. For example, trying to get a few oil tankers through the Strait of Hormuz. And the Iranians, having said, no, 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 you can't do that if you don't get the permit, hit them with a missile. Or maybe they didn't do that. Maybe the Houthis did it on their own and zapped a Saudi thing because it was violating. We'll never know that. And then something begins. My understanding is somebody blew up the airport in Yemen, in the major airport in their capital city. It was so bad that one report showed that people who went to attend the funeral of Ayatollah Khamenei from Yemen, and by the way, Americans don't understand, that was one of the greatest funerals ever in the history of the world, what we just saw there. People came to Iran and to the Shiite parts of Iraq to celebrate that funeral in many different ways. And the Yemenis went in a group also. And then they flew back. They couldn't land at the airport because someone had bombed the airport. They had to go to a neighboring airport that wasn't even finished, but they were able to land there. But they might not have been. They were very upset. They're being attacked. And so they are now thinking, of course, of closing that other strait because they need to participate in showing the world that you cannot do what is being done. They lost their airport, okay? They're building another one. They'll repair this one. It's not that. It's that you are bringing more people into a warfare situation, either actively causing it or defending themselves. One of the reasons you don't do what Trump and Israel did is because it risks a wider war. For Israel, that made sense because they hoped that a wider war would bring the United States deeper into the situation. They've been trying for years to get the United States to be militarily more active, helping Israel in that area. They are now achieving, slowly, painfully, and at enormous human cost, what they were going to do. The question really is only, I don't mean to be simple-minded, but I do think, working on this all the time, that the crucial question here is whether the Iranian people and their government have the solidarity, have the commitment to withstand the effort to terrorize them into submission, because that's what this is. Endless bombing, endless missile, endless drones, using the firepower of the United States gathered there is the only American effort now being made to deal with this situation. So if that's what you have, then the key question is, can the recipient of all of that withstand it? The Iranians have already shown the world we can fight back. We have missiles too, and they do. And we have drones, and we know how to use them, and we have proven our skill at using them. So the United States has a real enemy, not just in the people. The recognition how important the enemy of the people is that there's no landing of American troops because that's too dangerous. The cost of that for the United States would be even greater. Large numbers of dead soldiers coming back. It's not the political need between now and November when there's an election. So the people have shown you can't do that. So all they got is the air power, the missiles and the drones, which the Iranians can return in good measure. The United States is willing to continue because the missiles and drones, really, they're not coming to the United States. They're coming to American bases in the Gulf states. And that's serious. But they have decided clearly they can absorb that damage. Iran is already doing more damage to the military apparatus of the United States than anyone I know of in a long time. It's a remarkable already sign. But if they are solid, if they are held together, then time is on their side. And that is absolutely crucial. And the reason time is on their side is is really clear. Number one, they have used up, and by they I mean mostly the United States and China, but they have used up their oil reserves, or most of them. One of the reasons the price of oil has not risen more than it already has is the determined behavior of the United States to pump oil into the market, and the determination of China, that used to buy a lot of international oil, to rely instead on its own reserves and the limitless supply that they can get from Russia. I mean, all of these are very, very important. So here's the problem: the United States doesn't have that much more oil, and the Chinese may not have enough, may not want to deplete their reserves. They know that the United States, once it's done in the Middle East, will in fact be looking more and more at China in the years ahead. They have to see what kind of policies they may face. The United States' control on the world oil market, something our colleague Michael speaks to very often on our program here. All of these things mean that there may not be more reserves, that China may return into the market, and there'll be more demand, and less reserve, less supply, more demand, less supply, then the price of oil. And that will mean the price of gasoline, which never came down that much anyway, will be boosted up again. And then we have the inflationary impact that has not yet so far become unmanageable. Mr. Trump is being told, that I know, that he has to worry about that. The Iranians don't have to worry about that. The Iranians have, in their alliance with Russia and China, a secure backstop for the things they need that they can't otherwise obtain. And by the way, talking about expanding war, one of the things that Iran relies on is the passage of boats in the Caspian Sea from Russia to Iran. That is a crucial passageway, given the mountainous territory and what the land looks like up there. That's a very important thing. And the Ukrainians are trying to disrupt all of this. They have nothing left. Their economy is finished. Their military is mostly gone. They are left with warfare with drones. And so they are trying to use massive drones, obviously paid for and supplied by Europe, to paralyze Russian shipping in the Sea of Azov, in the Black Sea, and in the Caspian Sea. And so you could see literally the two wars are beginning to impinge one upon the other. So that when you hear predictions that this could be the beginning of World War III, that's what people mean, that this is a war that is spreading. All wars have that capability, but we're now watching the capability becoming a reality as everybody adjusts. The strategic decision of Ukrainian drones is shaped by the Houthis doing to the Saudi Arabians a new move in the Red Sea. I mean, people should understand that's one of the dangers, so that the whole world, which currently, as I know from watching the press around the world, rolls its eyes every time Mr. Trump says something odd or bizarre, which is almost every day. If you think that's funny, think again, because this man is in a key position to do something which the world may never recover from. Something has happened to allow this mentality to be in this position as we speak should really terrify everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. Richard, here is what Donald Trump said about the energy and the case of energy, the importance of that for the ongoing war that between the United States and Iran.
Do you anticipate that the strikes we're seen this week against Iran will expand? Are you considering hitting energy targets or other locations inside of Iran?
I'll save the energy targets for last, but ultimately we'll hit energy targets, yeah. But we're going to hit them very hard tonight. We're going to hit them very hard tomorrow night. We're going to hit them very hard the night after. And then next week it gets really bad for them because next week comes the power plants. Next week comes the bridges. We're going to knock out all their power plants. We're going to knock out all their bridges unless they get to the table and negotiate.
We know that the Iranian response would be the same. If they hit a power grid in Iran, they're going to get the same in GCC countries. And how is that going to help Donald Trump with the case of oil market and the export of oil? It's not just about the power grids, it's about oil facilities, which are so important. They can get hit by Iranian missiles or drones. This is the game that he's trying to intimidate Iranians and say, we're going to attack you. You have to be careful. How is that going to help him?
Well, I think the hope is that the leadership in Iran will at some point make a decision to stop the pain that is being imposed on the country in the way that Mr. Trump wants. I think that the problem for Mr. Trump is that, in order to make any of this credible, he's actually going to have to do what he says. And that's a war crime under the Geneva Convention. You cannot bomb power plants and bridges as part of a threat to terrorize a civilian population, which is clearly what he's intending to do. You are supposed to limit yourself to military targets. Okay, but if you don't, the oldest argument in the book is when you don't do that, when you let yourself violate the law, you invite your adversaries to do the same. And Americans don't understand there are lots of civilian vulnerabilities around the world. Millions of Americans travel around the world as tourists. They could become targets. What is going to happen then? How is this going to be handled? American military bases, even if the Iranians were to limit themselves to those, exist in many European countries. Are they going to go after them too? They could. They might. And NATO, will it then go to war against Iran? First of all, NATO doesn't have much to go to war with. And they're real worried about Russia. Oh, how are they going to manage that? I mean, these questions have no answers except terrifying ones. Do you really want to go there? I don't think so. I think he's hoping that this kind of speaking will be terrifying. I want people to understand this is how terrorists function. They threaten, they get closer and closer, they throw a bomb here, and then they throw a bomb somewhere else, and doesn't work, and so they have to go up what George and others call the escalation ladder, etc. He's hoping that verbal escalation and bombing a lot, although I'm told from friends of mine that many of these bombing raids are repeat bombings of many of the same military sites that they bombed before and that didn't solve the problem before and are unlikely to solve the problem now because we, the Americans, don't know where all the missiles are, how to control them, where all the drones are. They move them anyway. Much of this is underground, can't be tracked in the way that we're used to, etc., etc., etc. You know, Ukraine is trying to use warfare of missiles and drones because that's all they have, right? And the huge country of Russia, which overwhelms Ukraine and is winning the war if you pay any attention. But still, there are a few Ukrainian drones that get through. The Russians can't shoot them all down, right? So there's a big country using drones, a little country, using drones and can make some damage. Well, Iran is doing the same thing. It can make a lot of damage. The ability of the United States to stop it is limited, like the ability of Russia to stop Ukrainian drone. It's limited. And the Russians, in the end, will be in better shape because the Ukrainians don't have the capacity and they haven't developed the capacity of the Iranian. And there's a good reason. They haven't been doing this for 40, 50 years. The Iranians have. And that introduces one more thing. As best I can read the Iranian messaging, they've come to the conclusion, which I understand, that if you look back over the last 75 years, 3/4 of a century since the overthrow of the elected government of Mossadegh, you have had a dictatorship for 25 years of the Shah, and then you had the relentless enmity of the United States ever since the mullahs took over in the revolution against the Shah. So you've had an immense long time for the people now in charge to have suffered under a dictatorship for a long time. One of the reasons the revolution in Iran took the form that it did was that the only place safe from the Savak, from the police of the Shah, were the mosques. You could hide under the protection of the mosques. It's a little bit like how you hid in Poland in the Roman Catholic Church, or how you hid in other societies in the religious institutions to the extent they were safe. Okay, so those people were hunted by the Shah. Then they made a revolution only to discover that the Shah went into exile in the United States, and the United States became the ally of Israel in trying to overthrow this government too. And they saw covert efforts, spy efforts, all of it. People should remember the time when everybody's telephone blew up. They had figured out how to do that, or they killed Soleimani, my apologies for the pronunciation, the famous general, or the war a year ago when Israel, they understood, and this Americans need to know, they are under constant attack. Fighting back now is to bring that 75-year period to an end. No dictatorship imposed by the British MI6 and the CIA, 1953. No Shah family running our country. No, none, not the United States threatening us, not Israel threatening us. No, 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 no. We have to bring this to an end.